All right, folks. In today's video, we are going to talk about shadow work. Specifically, this video is I'm going to break down basically a short list of indications that you would benefit from doing shadow work, that maybe you need to do some shadow work. Okay, if you're not exactly sure what shadow work is, I'll break it down a little bit in this video. This particular list comes from an excerpt from an article that I've written. It's posted on my website. I will put it in the description below. And if you want to go read the article in its entirety, feel free to do so. So again, in this video, I'm going to break down some of the indicators that you would benefit from shadow work, or that shadow work would be needed. If you're new here, my name's Scott. I am a licensed therapist here in the beautiful state of Utah. And if you're interested in shadow work, you want to keep in mind that most therapists are not well acquainted with this, or not well versed in this, or not experienced with it, or well versed in it, or have very little experience in it. You don't expect to just walk into any therapist off the street and have them have any idea to know how to do shadow work or what that even means. If you're not familiar with shadow work or the shadow, I can give you a very, very brief breakdown. This is a theory built by Carl Jung. He was one of the founders of modern psychology, Jung. He has a huge following to this day. He's one of the, again, he was born in the 1800s, and he's one of the founders of modern psychology. And he had what I believe, excellent theories and approaches to the mind, the psyche, and the subconscious. Carl, one of his most famous quotes is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will blame fate. Meaning that you won't understand why certain things continue to happen to you. For example, like, I'll give you an example. I talk to a lot of females who say, they say, I don't understand why drama always finds me. And so there's something going on there, right? And it's outside of their awareness. We would say that's that is in the shadow. So shadow work refers to pulling things out of what's outside of the awareness. Okay, so that's what the shadow refers to. It's things that are outside of your field of awareness. Now, some people have tons of awareness, right? They have tons and tons and tons of personal awareness. Some people have very, very limited personal awareness. So in cases like this, they have what I would call a very, very deep shadow. And there's a lot packed away in there, and a lot of things that are affecting them and directing their lives, and they don't realize it. So shadow work partially has a lot to do with bringing things to your awareness. Once they're in your field of awareness and your awareness expands, that thing is no longer in your shadow. Okay. And things in your shadow could be beliefs, could be pain that you're holding on to, painful things that you're holding on to, shame that you're holding on to, memories, belief systems, attitudes, just all kinds of things. All sorts of things can be in the shadow. Okay. So if you're interested in learning more about the shadow, there's a ton of information on the internet. Just do some research. Okay. So without further ado, this is a short list of indications that you would likely benefit from doing shadow work. Again, this is directly from an article I wrote on my website. Okay, so number one, no particular order, you find yourself stuck in perpetual cycles of behavior. Okay, so people get into cycles and patterns, right? And it can look like, for example, there's a pattern or cycle of bad relationships or bad relationship decisions, right? And people might find themselves making bad relationship choice after bad relationship after bad relationship choice. And they, A, don't understand why it keeps happening, and B, can't seem to stop themselves. That would be, shadow work could be extremely beneficial in that case to help uncover those reasons and resolve them. So shadow work, as a side note, is a way to basically rewire the subconscious. It gets to the source, or what we might call the source code, and rewrite that source code of the person, and then their behavior just changes. And it's really fascinating to watch. Certain behaviors just stop happening when we do really good quality shadow work. So number one, you find yourself stuck in perpetual cycles. Okay, so this could fall under other behaviors too. uh, right, addictive behaviors. But that actually gives us to number two, which is that you are impulsive and compulsive. Do you show impulsive behaviors and compulsive behaviors? Right, like, so for example, you might promise yourself, like, I'm gonna use maybe a fairly innocuous one that a lot of people are going to relate to these days. Example that a lot of people relate to, and that might be impulsive spending. Spending money they don't have, just buying stuff they don't want, buying stuff they don't need, just because whatever, just because they just continue to do so, right? So you might promise yourself like, oh, I'm tired of being broke. I'm gonna curb my spending, and then like you feel compulsive. You feel compelled, that's the word I'm looking for. You feel compelled to spend money anyways. And on an impulse, you just do it anyways. Picking up your phone, opening Amazon. It's this easy. Boom, 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 to order stuff on Amazon. And boom, it's there the next day in some cases. So, and then afterwards you're like, why did I do that? Right? I can't stop myself from doing that. I'm very impulsive and I'm compelled to do these types of things. And that can apply to a lot of stuff, whether it's spending money or maybe eating or maybe looking at porn, maybe like casual sex. There's a lot of examples, right? So if you find that certain things almost seem to rule your life and make your decisions for you, and you feel like this pull towards certain things and you can't seem to stop yourself, then you are impulsive or compulsive and you can benefit from doing some quality shadow work. Okay, number three, you are highly emotional and emotionally volatile or emotionally unpredictable. Okay, you might be really calm one minute and just things just boom, they just randomly just boom set you off, and basically your days kind of look like this emotionally boom, and we go back down to a baseline boom unexpectedly, and just certain things will just set you off and you don't know, there's no good reason for it, it doesn't make sense, you can't seem to control your emotions, you have low emotional control. So really it's like the theme with this list here is that you are just lacking in personal control, whether it's emotionally or with your decisions or with getting stuck in certain cycles, etc. Okay, but if you find yourself getting overly upset and you don't really understand why, then later you might feel ashamed or guilty that you got really upset and you had all of this emotion and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get myself under control, but you still find this happening. You would benefit from shadow work. Okay, and finally, number four, this is the last one. But this one's really important. This one is really important because I've seen this with a lot of people. I actually feel like I see this with guys more than. Sorry, I got distracted. I see this more with guys than I do with girls from women. But it's common to feel like you're sometimes a different person, or that there's an alter ego. That because again, I see this with guys a lot, where like day to day they just seem fairly normal guys, go to work to pay their bills, they just seem to be pretty regular guys, but then they'll have episodes where they do really extreme behaviors. Maybe they're losing their temper, maybe they're freaking out, maybe they just turn into somebody different. And so human beings have a tendency to have a strong duality to them. They're got this dualistic nature, right, to them. And so oscillating between the two, okay, this is a strong indication that a person would benefit from shadow work. Okay, so this would be like what we call a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde syndrome. And if you're not familiar with the old story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, basically Dr. Jekyll was this scientist and he would drink this potion and boom, and he would turn into Mr. Hyde, who was this really aggressive, rebellious, miscreant, whatever you want to call it. But that story is basically a symbol of the duality of human nature. So I've seen some people where it's like they really they turn into somebody almost entirely different, and they're off doing things that they almost seem to have no control over. Okay, and that is something that I would call the shadow ego, right? Your regular ego, your forward facing ego, is sort of your day to day. The shadow ego is the alter ego that comes out. Okay, this is a very, very real phenomenon. So some people have a very, very stark contrast between the two. Right. Day to day, it's almost like, oh, they're just a really nice, well-functioning person, and then that alter ego comes out and they can do some really, really scary, dark, dangerous things. Okay, so that's number 4. And I really, in those cases too, like if you have a shadow ego that really takes over and you have this go back and forth, it's really destructive to your life. It's very, very destructive to your life. Just like the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it's very destructive. You find you losing your job, your family falling apart, your relationships falling apart, your finances falling apart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and so shadow work can really, really, really help with that. My one of my favorite therapy methods is called internal family systems, or IFS. It's basically a structured shadow work. It can be really, really helpful for things like this. So there you go. If you want to read the whole article on shadow work, again, you can go check the article out. So please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.